Danny Huston makes his return to the horror genre as a priest with mysterious ulterior motives in Consecration. Huston, the Golden Globe-nominated son of Hollywood legend John Huston, has enjoyed a storied career of his own over the past 50 years, particularly in the horror genre and playing villains in various genres. Some of his most notable roles include those of the Axeman in American Horror Story, Ben, the Butcher, Diamond in Magic City, General Ludendorff in Wonder Woman and Marlowe in 30 Days of Night, among many others. Huston stars in Consecration as Father Romero, a priest working in conjunction with a convent on the Isle of Skye and serving as a point of contact for Jana Malone's Dr. Grace Ferrio, a doctor who comes to look into the suspicious death of her brother, a priest, at the convent. As Grace continues her investigation, she comes to find Romero may also have had a hand in her brother's death. Having originally released in theaters and on Shudder in early 2023, Consecration left critics divided on the film's mixture of its religious horror, ambiguous storytelling, and Malone's performance. In honor of the movie's digital debut, Screen Rant interviewed Danny Huston to discuss Consecration. The star opened up about the dark villainous twist uncovered about his character in the film, and his own interpretation of Father Romero's decisions, while also recalling the genre inspirations he pulled from going into the movie's production. Huston also offered uncertain, but hopeful, updates on the future of The Horizon, an American saga franchise, and why he's excited about the Naked Gun revival. Father Romero's shocking villain twist is where the psychological drama lies in Consecration. It brings back his faith, in a sense. For much of Consecration's run, Father Malone presents a kind-hearted disposition to Jana Malone's Grace, offering her all the insight he has and working to help her get information from the secretive nuns at the convent where her brother was killed. However, as the film proceeds, it's revealed the nuns are working for him directly with whatever dark scheme they are conducting, all of which culminates in the finale, in which they all attempt to lock Grace away in a crypt to prevent her apparent telekinetic powers from being used in the world, despite Grace's benevolent nature. In reflecting on this twist, Huston first began by praising the wonderful reunion he had with Malone while making the horror film, looking back to when he first met her during the making of 1996's Bastard Out of Carolina, which was helmed by his Oscar-winning sister Angelica Huston. Though denoting they didn't work together on the film, he beamed at Consecration being a full-circle moment for the two, feeling he saw the beginning of her career during the acclaimed drama and that it was great to work with her. As for why Father Romero elects to turn on Grace in the film, Huston describes his learning that she is either a demon in human form or an archangel as being a great epiphany for the character, as it brings back his faith, even if it also means he now has a dark plan for her. With much of the film seeing Romero apparently acting as an ally for Grace, Huston recalls that the conversation he and co-writer-director Christopher Smith had for his performance was to simply remember, you want to put her in the box. While Romero's trying to contain the film's protagonist in a crypt is certainly dark, some are sure to argue in favor of his and the convent's motivations for trying to keep peace in the world in case Grace proves a malevolent spirit. When asked what his opinions were on Romero's actions, Huston points out the debate is where the psychological drama lies in Consecration, pointing out the movie's flashbacks to the convent's medieval days in which knights in shining armor were doing good while they massacred people. Then, they were seeking their redemption by returning to this tower, and being caught by God, and then their sins being pardoned is sort of an epic mythological story, is it not? Huston pondered. Where certain acts of evil can be justified in the name of God. Romero's death scene was based in part on Huston's suggestions. We were trying to figure out a dramatic way for me to die. Danny Huston's Father Romero impaled by a golden cross in Consecration. After nearly succeeding in sealing her away in the crypt, a rejuvenated Grace instead elects to rise and turn on Romero and the nuns, with one of the golden crosses in the main chapel of the convent coming down and impaling him. It's further revealed in a montage that the apparent telekinetic means Grace has used to harm or kill others in self-protection has actually been that of her future self going back through time and doing the acts herself, including throwing the golden cross down into Romero. Looking back on the creation of his death scene, Huston reveals it actually came from his research into the wider religious lore tied to Consecration's story, namely that of the archangel, with most artistic interpretations showing them in the midst of throwing a sword or arrow down onto a foe. Having come across this, the Golden Globe nominee brought it to the director's attention, as the two were trying to figure out a dramatic way for me to die, Huston said with a chuckle, with Smith ultimately having liked the idea. For the actual filming of the scene, which appears to use a subtle mix of visual and practical effects, Huston described it as being quite simple to put his death scene together, describing it as being like a bull in a bullfight. One of the unique challenges he and Smith encountered, however, was acting with this arrow through my back and talking to Jaina's character in that position, and that condition, expressing his hope that it lands, to some effect, for viewers. Huston turned to two key genre classics for inspiration. He was even able to include an Easter egg nod to one of them. Danny Huston as Father Romero leading a group of nuns into a church in consecration. With Huston having plenty of experience in the horror genre, he certainly had a variety of reasons for being hooked by Consecration's material, though ultimately pointed to two genre classics as being both inspirations and similar to the movie's tone, those being the iconic 1973 Exorcist adaptation and the 1947 adaptation of the psychological drama Black Narcissus. The Golden Globe nominee recalled seeing the former when he lived in Rome as a child, having affected me deeply in my youth, particularly when a cross fell off a church in the country at the time of its release and US audiences were similarly overwhelmed by it. This further led to Huston looking to homage The Exorcist by including a nod to Max von Sydow's Father Merrin, whom he describes as an inspiration for me in general, by getting the exact same pair of spectacles for Father Romero's costume. I had the props department find out where those spectacles came from, and their NHS, National Health Service, from the 70s, Huston shared. We found a pair, and I was happy to wear them as a nod to The Exorcist. With his genre and religious research also seeing him delving a little bit into the Vatican, as he met characters that were not unlike Father Romero. When he was young, Huston admits to being almost fearful in the sense that you don't want to touch this material, just in case you're struck down by God for doing something sort of blasphemous. The star does acknowledge that.